Did you watch King Charles's speech addressed to Congress yesterday? It was about 32 minutes long. If you didn't, I did. It was like a constitutional intervention. It was like a dad pulling up to a son that he recognizes spiraling. And he says, listen here, okay, when you left and said you want to be independent, we had certain guiding principles, ethics, morals, rules of engagement and action and decorum that I thought I had imparted in you because we have similar origins. And early on, I saw it working out, but lately it looks like you're a shell of yourself. I can't even recognize you. Like, what is going on with you? Like, what happened? So inside that speech, 32 minutes, I took notes. Woven inside of it was kind of like reminders to members of Congress, specifically the Republican ones, that democracy is what you were supposed to be built upon. That's what you're supposed to be promoting. Concepts of pluralism, concept of alliances. That's what we want to do. We're talking about warnings towards executive overreach, erosion of democratic principles and ideals, and being worrisome of authoritarian rhetoric. And so in this video, I walk you through those 6 segments that I identified in the speech. So if you're interested in that, stay tuned. The first one was when the king was talking about things like the Magna Carta and its own founders. It's similar. Essentially, he said that your government and your Supreme Court has mentioned our laws, our common law, because it's so similar, plentiful. So essentially, that talks about our connection. And so, and what's really key, remember, is executive overreach and the dangers of executive overreach. That you guys are acting on behalf of many, not one person. Not one person. And you guys are fighting for these rights for all people, everyone, not just. Listen, watch this segment and let's talk a little bit on the other side.
So I come here today with the highest respect for the United States Congress, this citadel of democracy created to represent the voice of all American people to advance sacred rights and freedoms. Speaking in this renowned chamber of debate and deliberation, I cannot help but think of my late mother, Queen Elizabeth, who in 1991 was also afforded this signal honor and similarly spoke under the watchful eye of the Statue of Freedom above us. Not by the will of one, but by the deliberation of many. Our common ideals were not only crucial for liberty and equality, they are also the foundation of our shared prosperity. The rule of law, the certainty of stable and accessible rules, an independent judiciary resolving disputes and delivering impartial justice. These features created the conditions for centuries of unmatched economic growth in our two countries.
Yeah, it was just interesting just to have a reminder come from somebody who was like, dad is like, hey, you know what? This is not what you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be doing checks and balances. You're supposed to be talking about Constitution, courts matter, all these things. But I see that there's an erosion of those things. So the attacking the judges, the ceding of your congressional authority. That's what you guys have been doing for this guy. And it's openly hostile to constitutional restraints and the concepts of balance of power. Let's get it together. Let's get it together. All right. So in the second segment, I want you to watch diversity. I think this was a direct slam to Donald Trump's anti-diversity, equity, inclusion agenda, where he's essentially trying to block awareness, books, panels, opportunities to anyone who's not white. And he says, our diversity is not a buzzword. It's something that actually is a strength that strengthens your country, strengthen our country. And he also mentioned this scholarship called the Marshall Scholarship, which allows Americans to go to the UK to study with money. And there's a DI component to that when they outreach, because they want lots of people, because they recognize opportunities should be to all. And during that segment, note when you're watching this that they honed in on Linda McMahon, who as the Department of Education has just been dismantling and removing rights and opportunities and just gleefully and happily reporting about scaling back rights and opportunities for children, doing the exact opposite of what the Department of Education is supposed to be doing. Watch this segment.
Not by the will of one, but by the deliberation of many, representing the living mosaic of the United States. In both of our countries, it is the very fact of our vibrant, diverse, and free societies that gives us our collective strength, including to support victims of some of the ills that so tragically exist in both our societies today. Our ties in education, research, and cultural exchange empower citizens and future leaders of both countries. The Marshall Scholarship, named after the great General George Marshall, and the association of which I am so proud to be patron, are emblematic of the connection between our two countries. Since its founding, more than 2,300 scholarships have been awarded, opening doors for Americans from all walks of life to study at the United Kingdom's leading universities.
And let's be honest about something. Diversity, equity, inclusion was never about like numerical quotas. It was always about just outreach. That's it, right? So hearing that come from someone say we had global partnerships and we exchanged, ideas and we, work together. And that's a strength. That's a good thing. We want to encourage that. And then leading into that, he talks in another portion, like immediately after, about interfaith, about religion, not about theocracy, not about religious domination of one religion, but essentially coexistence, with other people, mutual respect for faiths. So it's a political moment we're in because we see that Pete Hex said he's a white nationalist. Russell Vogt admitted that he's a nationalist and said during a hot mic that he preferred that all immigrants here come from Christian values. So they want to turn the United States into an ethno state. So he was kind of like saying, you want to be careful with that. Watch this segment.
Mr. Speaker, for many here, and for myself, the Christian faith is a firm anchor and daily inspiration that guides us, not only personally, but together as members of our community. Having devoted a large part of my life to interfaith relationships and greater understanding, it is that faith in the triumph of light over darkness which I have found confirmed countless times. Through it, I am inspired by the profound respect that develops as people of different faiths grow in their understanding of each other. It is why, it is my hope, my prayer, that in these turbulent times, working together and with our international partners, we can stem the beating of plowshares into swords. I am mindful that we are still in the season of Easter, the season that most strengthens my hope. It is why I believe with all my heart that the essence of our two nations is a generosity of spirit and a duty to foster compassion, to promote peace, to deepen mutual understanding, and to value all people of all faiths and of none.
Right? The subtext felt almost like, I taught you better than this. Religious liberty and protecting difference, that was part of your First Amendment. Like now it looks like you're trying to impose some sort of uniformity, Pete Hex said, and you missed the plot. You missed the plot. Great. Okay. Then surprisingly, environment. Environment, that we are on this planet together. We're stewards to the spaces, and we have a responsibility and a shared obligation to make sure our earth is is whole, it's well, it's healthy, it's flourishing. But this administration has rolled back a lot of regulation related to clean air, water. So I love that. I love that part. Watch this.
So as we look toward the next 250 years, we must also reflect on our shared responsibility to safeguard nature, our most precious and irreplaceable asset. Millennia before our nations existed, before any border drawn, the mountains of Scotland and Appalachia were one, a single continuous range forged in the ancient collision of continents. The natural wonders of the United States of America are indeed a unique asset, and generations of Americans have risen to this calling. Indigenous, political and civic leaders, people in rural communities and cities alike, have all helped to protect and nurture what President Theodore Roosevelt called the glorious heritage of this land's extraordinary natural splendor, on which so much of its prosperity has always depended. Yet, even as we celebrate the beauty that surrounds us, our generation must decide how to address the collapse of critical natural systems, which threatens far more than the harmony and essential diversity of nature. We ignore at our peril the fact that these natural systems, in other words, nature's own economy, provide the foundation for our prosperity and our national security.
Right? So, yes. And then there's a portion of the segment when he's talking about reminding that America, Donald Trump, since he's gotten in office, has been trying to alienate and sort of intimidate all of these other countries. And he's a transactional person, and that's whole tariff policies. He has his belief that we give more, which we do sometimes, than we take in. And he has like old 1920s, 1930s view of America. The world has gone on, it's global. But King Charles reminds him, you cannot abandon your allies. You cannot undermine NATO. We have to be together. Our partnership is more than just transactional inconveniences. During Greenland, we're going to back Denmark. You can't, we have we've been here for a long time. Democracies survive through cooperation.
The alliance that our two nations have built over the centuries, and for which we are profoundly grateful to the American people, is truly unique. And that alliance is part of what Henry Kissinger described as Kennedy's soaring vision of an Atlantic partnership based on twin pillars, Europe and America. That partnership, I believe, Mr. Speaker, is more important today than it has ever been. The first reigning British sovereign to set foot in America was my grandfather, King George VI. He visited in 1939 with my beloved grandmother, Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother. The forces of fascism in Europe were on the march, and sometime before the United States had joined us in the defense of freedom, our shared values prevailed. Today, we find ourselves in a new era, but those values remain. It is an era that is in many ways more volatile and more dangerous than the world to which my late mother spoke in this chamber in 1991. The challenges we face are too great for any one nation to bear alone. But in this unpredictable environment, our alliance cannot rest on past achievements or assume that foundational principles simply endure. As my Prime Minister said last month, ours is an indispensable partnership. We must not disregard everything that has sustained us for the last 80 years. Instead, we must build on it. In the immediate aftermath of 9/11, when NATO invoked Article 5 for the first time, and the United Nations Security Council was united in the face of terror, we answered the call together, as our people have done so for more than a century, shoulder to shoulder, through 2 world wars, the Cold War, Afghanistan, and moments that have defined our shared security. Today, Mr. Speaker, that same unyielding resolve is needed for the defense of Ukraine and her most courageous people. It is needed in order to secure a truly just and lasting peace. From the depths of the Atlantic to the disastrously melting ice caps of the Arctic, the commitment and expertise of the United States Armed Forces and its allies lie at the heart of NATO, pledged to each other's defense, protecting our citizens and interests, keeping North Americans and Europeans safe from our common adversaries. Our defense, intelligence, and security ties are hardwired together through relationships measured not in years, but in decades. Today, thousands of US service personnel, defense officials and their families are stationed in the United Kingdom, as British personnel serve with equal pride across 30 American states. We are building F-35s together, and we have agreed the most ambitious submarine program in history, AUKUS. And we are doing it in partnership with Australia, a country of which I'm also immensely proud to serve as sovereign. We do not embark on these remarkable endeavors together out of sentiment. We do so because they build greater shared resilience for the future, so making our citizens safer for generations to come.
Not isolationism. So I love that. Yes, clock that. Words. And this is the ending. It's kind of words have consequences. We've seen Donald Trump use his words, do his truth social to say, threaten war crimes, that I'm going to wipe out a civilization. Words causes people to go January 6th, stand down and stand by, telling his folks to go after them, labeling political opponents as traitors, as vermin, as enemy of the people, calling for their execution. All of the words, every single day, he's using hostile, just the worst words. He's unpresidential and he's spiraling. And so it was a reminder that when you say these things in America, it has impact.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Vice President, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, America's words carry weight and meaning, as they have since independence. The actions of this great nation matter even more. President Lincoln understood this so well with his reflection in the magisterial Gettysburg Address, that the world may little note what we say, but will never forget what we do. And so to the United States of America, on your 250th birthday, let our two countries rededicate ourselves to each other in the selfless service of our peoples and of all the peoples of the world. God bless the United States and God bless the United Kingdom.
So the speech was just, I didn't hear, when they first said King Charles was coming, I was like, maybe you might not want to come out here right now. He has his own history. The United Kingdom has its own imperialistic, neo-colonialist and colonialist legacies that are damaging to people of the world right now. So I'm acknowledging that. I can acknowledge that while also acknowledge the fact that that speech was quite effective, and it was the people that needed to hear it the most were there. I don't know if it's always going to sink in. It may not, but it's just great to let them know, like, this is what the world thinks about you, and I see how far you have fallen, and I'm concerned. So I'm concerned about the democratic erosion. I'm concerned about the extremism. Concerned about the division. I'm concerned about what happens when powerful nations forget the principles that made them in the first place, and their obligation to the world to be stewards. Yeah, so it's interesting coming from somebody who is like, we rebelled, and also a lot of the things that's going on now with the Trump administration is what the rebellion was for. America left the monarchy, left the king because of the tyranny of the king. Taxation without representation, having the thumb, and the authoritarian sort of aspect of it. That they try to fight for that. That's what the founders are about. And Donald Trump is like, they're giving him the authority to essentially, I don't know, piss on the grave of the founders, because they did not want this, and they set up the country to avoid specifically what Donald Trump is doing. Ideologue and culture war, megalomaniac to take over. Mad king. All right, no kings. JJ Legal, each one teach one. Let's talk below. You like this? Did you like that speech? Let's talk about it. Let's replay King Charles